back to the channel and welcome to episode 26. Today we're going to take a look at an electric slider.
So we're reviewing a dancer?
It's electric.
No, sorry Keith. We're actually reviewing the Zeapon Micro2 Electric or Motorized Slider. It's a device that's used to move your camera to make more interesting video.
Ah, right. Yeah, you're talking about that slider device that we use to get that rise above the table on your back deck. When I was in Nebraska, we were filming that episode about the wireless microphone.
Yep, now we're on the same page.
Yeah, you know, those sliders allow you to make some pretty impressive shots, right? If you want to do some like panning shots across, a slow motion move across a product, or if you want to zoom in or out onto something for a kind of a dramatic look, yeah, it's very useful for that. In our case, we had that rising shot where it kind of brought us into view. That's something frankly, there's no way we would have been able to do that without a third person at least, right, operating the camera. And frankly, even if we had a third person, they would have had to have had some kind of gimbal or a really steady hand to pull off that type of shot, right? I think it's very useful for those kinds of things.
Exactly. So this slider, technically a travel slider, is designed to be smaller and able to be packed in a bag, for example. And because of that, has some unique characteristics that allow us to get some shots that we otherwise wouldn't be able to with a device this small.
Yeah, I know in the unboxing, which we'll show here in a minute, that we had a hard time visualizing right out of the box how that travel operation actually occurred, right? It was a 13-inch track, but achieved 21 inches worth of travel. So maybe what we should do is show some video here to give our audience a visual reference for how the operation actually happens, because I think the way we described it probably didn't do it justice.
I'm going to illustrate how this particular slider creates that nearly 21 inches of motion out of a 13-inch unit. So some things that I want to point out about the slider: this is the control module and motor area. The battery attaches here. I've got a smaller battery attached right now. There are some controls on my side that give you the ability to power the unit on and adjust the speed to 3 different levels that the slider can move at. Now, when I get this actually started up for the motion, what you're going to see is this particular sled, I'll call it here, that the ball head is attached to, is going to slide in this direction. As well, the track is going to move this way. So let's go ahead and start this program up, and you'll be able to see this move. Now I have this set up to move at the fastest speed. And so here we're going to go ahead and start the unit, and you can see now that the track and the sled are moving at the same time. This is what gives us the ability to move from point A to point B and have that point A and B be roughly 21 inches apart.
Yeah, the fact that the rails move is really what kind of caught us by surprise, and we didn't foresee that until we saw it in action. And another kind of nice thing about this design is that if the camera is pointing in the same direction as the rails as it's moving, as opposed to outward or to the side, you still won't be able to see the rails during the shot because of its kind of compact nature. If you had a really long rail and the camera was pointing along the direction of the rails, I don't know how you would be able to avoid seeing the rails in the shot. So it's kind of a nice setup, this design.
Exactly, Keith. So the only real downside to this particular slider is that center of mass is changing as both the slide rail itself moves and the payload attach. So that's going to put extra stress on the mount point itself.
All this talk about shifting centers of gravity and mount points and stresses, you are really, really talking my language now. In fact, I'm pretty confident I could build a simulation of all of this stuff, and it would be... yes?
I think it's probably suffice it to say that you need to have a steady tripod or mount point in order to handle that shifting of the center of mass, especially if the payload is approaching the slider's maximum 10-pound capacity. But let's maybe put that simulation on the shelf, and maybe we can pull that off at a later date.
All right. That's fine. We can keep things simple. But, if you ever change your mind, just let me know. I'm pretty sure we can build a simulation for that, no problem.
Will do. So maybe this is a good time to go ahead and jump into our unboxing video, and then we'll follow that up with our thoughts on the product. All right, well, we got another product unboxing. This is the Zeapon Micro2 Electric Slide. So we've already talked about this, introduced it a little bit. We're going to get this unboxed. Keith, what are your thoughts on this?
My first thought is it Zeapon or is it Zeapon?
You know, the world may never know.
I think the world might not ever know. I'm actually enthralled by these. You bought this as a kit, right?
Yeah, this came as a bundle. Battery, charger, and the slider itself.
I don't know, since we're talking about packaging, this somehow strikes me as trying too hard to describe how high quality it is. And
By saying
maybe,
it's a high quality?
Yeah, it's almost having the opposite effect on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see that kind of packaging and think, is it
Maybe
really
not.
high quality?
Maybe, maybe not.
I'm also enthralled by this 1980s era video camera I see there, camcorder, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not to be outdone, our charger, you know, its packaging is, this is actually just the way it came. So this has not been beat up by me. It shipped from Amazon like that. And it actually shipped loose like this as the bundle. So that was kind of an interesting part for me, that the bundle, none of this was in, you know, overboxed. This is exactly the way it came loose from the Amazon box.
Huh.
So
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is their distribution system versus Amazon or whoever was the shipper.
yeah, it's really hard to say.
Hard to say.
Now, the claim to fame on this device, what actually prompted me to get this particular unit was, and actually another YouTube channel did a review on it, and I thought, you know, there's some cool things you can do with a product slider. And so, you know, I kind of succumbed to the, you know, I've always wanted to play around with it just because there's some interesting things you can do from product shots, or even if you're trying to, you know, like, you know, illustrates like someone's working on something and your hands on the keyboard, you could have the camera moving in or pulling back automatically. Or if you're doing an interview, you can have it slide side to side, and it kind of gives it just a, little waves of the ocean going. You know, it's just one of those things that, you know, you can program it either on the device, and we'll see that as we get into it, or you can use your smartphone. They've got an app to control it. You can program waypoints, or basically places that it's supposed to do, or scenes it's supposed to do. And let's say that you need to do multiple takes, which, you know, you and I usually have to do multiple takes on a lot of different things.
Right.
You have that programmed in, and you can just say, oh, you know, I didn't like that take, let's do it again.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to redo any of that work.
Yeah, I like the idea of the slider too, in terms of putting motion into your video captures, because I imagine that you probably could do similar things in post-production.
You can,
You
yeah.
probably could, but I bet you could never exactly replicate what one of these things can do, because when the actual camera is actually moving, you know, it's capturing the differential of what's happening in the background.
Yes.
Which I think would be very hard to do in post-production.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna, if your camera is changing its focal point, right, you're not gonna see that represented if you're doing it in post. And quite honestly, unless say you're shooting 4K or higher, and then, you know, if you're doing one of those effects
Right.
where you're zooming in,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose, you know, maybe it's not noticeable, or maybe it is, you're gonna lose some of that resolution as you zoom in, because, you know, you're going into a further point, you're losing pixels in that process, versus if you're doing that with a slider and you're moving towards the subject, you know, naturally, you retain all your full resolution in that process. If you wouldn't mind maybe opening that tab for me on that side, we'll kind of cooperate. It's like, you know, the shared Christmas present, right?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's like, okay, open this together.
Except we would have to get in a big fight.
Yes. Oh, there we go. So this is the top of the packaging. You know, if you're not super familiar with sliders, you know, basically this is the motor / control module. This is the head, and this is just going to slide on a rail, right? So it's got different sliders use different mechanisms, but it's usually a track, you know, a rubber track that is on a spindle on this end, and that allows it to spin and then basically move that head back and forth depending on the direction the spindle's spinning over here. Once again, manuals, it's always fun. Oh, wow. So, you know, one of our favorite things, right?
Bags.
carrying cases, those types of things. So they give us this slider is really.
It's got a wetsuit type of.
Yeah, no, it's
texture
like a
to it.
neoprene kind of feel to it. Some hardware. It looks like we've got charging cable and some screws. Gosh, I don't remember any assembly required, but those are a dad's worst nightmare words, right?
Yeah, some assembly required.
So here's the actual unit itself. One of the things that whoa, it's actually way heavier than I thought. Some of this was just packaging in that weight, but if you pick this up, you'll feel it. Yeah, it's got some heft to it. I mean, it feels well built. This looks like it's aluminum construction on that side, and the head slides within here. This is really one of the things that really is designed to do is give you further travel than the track would have you believe you're going to get. So one of the things that allows this, this is designed to be portable, and they're really giving you something that, which is why you have a carrying case that you can tell is designed to be able to go out on the road with you.
Yeah.
You throw this in your bag, and let's say maybe you're doing a landscape and you want to really, kind of pan the landscape with this, even though this is a very small track. So if you flip this over and you look, the 1/4-inch mount to go on the tripod is actually on the travel unit itself instead of on the base. If it was on the base, we'd only have our 13 inches of travel from end to end. But instead, we can actually travel the entire distance of this track, both directions, because this part is moving instead of being fixed to the base. We would only have the travel from end to end versus this whole track is able to slide and give us more distance that we're moving. So it really allows it to compare with larger units with larger tracks because it's not fixed on the base in the control unit.
I'm having a hard time visualizing that, to be honest.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about testing products is we'll actually show it all set up and working so that what we've been describing as features visually, I think it's gonna really illustrate or drive home that point that because this moves and not being stuck to this, this is where we're moving from, and it's on the tripod itself. That's going to really show seeing it in action. We were talking about the spindle, and so this is using a track system. This is where a slider is going to fall down or stand up. How smooth the grooves are on here to give it smoother motion, right? So the rougher that these are, or the larger they are, the less smooth the travel is going to be. Inside of here, we have a gear that's meshing up with these teeth, and that's what's allowing it to grip it and move a certain amount of weight. Because if this was just a smooth belt, you would be bound by the amount of weight that you could have on here by that coefficient of static, right? The friction capability of the belt would bind you to how much weight you can actually mount on this camera. Because the downside to this mechanism, right, sliding across here is now you're moving more weight because it actually has to move this whole piece back and forth. So we're going to actually get this charged up with our high quality video battery.
High quality.
High quality.
It tells you it's high quality.
It tells you it's high quality. So that's how you know.
Yeah, looking back, we were really mystified when we first unboxed that unit.
Yeah, clearly it's a case where I had generally seen the product work and knew what its capabilities were, but didn't know exactly how it accomplished that.
Yeah, well, as they say, the devil is in the details. So let's take a look at some of the specifications for the product, and then we'll share some thoughts.
Perfect. So one thing I wanted to mention is an accessory we didn't have available when we did the unboxing when you were in Nebraska. I realized there'd be times where I wanted to get a nice low shot, and having it mounted on a tripod wouldn't necessarily give me that capability. So for instance, if I wanted to have something sitting on a table and I wanted to have the camera and the slider sitting right next to it and not up high, there's not really a great way to do that standalone. So with this accessory, you open up the legs, these flip out, and they've got feet, and so you just open these up, flip out the feet, get this positioned here, and now the slider can sit right on top, and you've got a low angle shot that you can get using this accessory.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I can definitely see times where you would want to keep it simple. How much trouble is it, say, to switch back and forth between the Easy Lock and, say, just like a regular tripod?
Keith, they actually include with the Easy Lock a quick release plate that you can slide right into the device and then use this lever to tighten it down. And so if you've got it on the quick lock and you want to move over to a tripod, you can simply just take this and release it from the desk area and move it over to a tripod, and vice versa. So really is very handy accessory that comes with the device. And you can even fold these legs down, keep the quick release plate on, and not even have to remove it. So you can store it if you go to set up at location, for example, you're already ready to go because the quick lock plate is stored right in the device in this small footprint. So another thing that makes this whole thing easy is the mounting screw here is a 1/4 20. Same thing with the 1/4 20 that's on the slider itself. And they include the adapter to take that and convert it from a 1/4 20 to a 3/8 16. So it's a nice little accessory that they give you so that you're not caught off guard without ability to connect up the right connections.
Yeah, you know, it's always those little bits, those little things like the screw diameters that hang you up sometimes when you're filming. I don't know about you, but I just never seem to have all the right stuff around. So that's a really nice feature.
So one thing to note, the slider does not come with a ball head, and I would highly recommend getting one and attaching your camera to the ball head instead of to the slider directly. What that's going to do is give you the ability to adjust the angle of the camera, what direction it's pointing, all those types of things, much better than you're going to have the ability to do having it attached directly to the 1/4 20 threads right on the slider mechanism.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I guess what you're saying, like, is if my arm here is the slider and this is the camera, it's much easier to get the orientation you want by doing this rather than doing this, right? So that makes sense to me. I'm buying that.
Exactly. Now, in the app, what we're showing here are several options that actually aren't currently available and enabled. And as such, that actually confused me at first when I was using the device, because my mind, if I see an option available, I want to click into it. What those are applications that are for new elements, like a motorized head that's going to give you the same functionality that ball head gave me, but a motorized capability, that can be programmed through the app and give you much more functionality of the whole system. Now, I don't know when those apps are going to be active because I don't know when the products that they're going to operate are going to be released. But when they are, I'm looking forward to actually trying them out, because I think it's really going to extend the capability of this slider significantly, with the ability to maybe, have the unit rotating, for example, as it's sliding, something that you can't currently do today.
Huh? That's intriguing. I'm provoked by that. I think we could do some cool things with that. But what about now? What's currently available in this app?
Well, today we can use the app to create waypoints, or points that measure where you want the slider to be at particular moments in a scene. And so what we do is, within the app, we simply double click one of those points, and that's going to mark the current location of the slider. Then we can move the slider either with the button on the device itself or through the app to the next position. And so once we have it into the next position we want, we can set that waypoint there, and so on and so forth. And we can set multiple positions. What they're going to show you on screen is going to be 5 positions available. Once you have all those waypoints or positions recorded, then you can use the play button within the app in order to play that particular scene, if you will, over and over. So it's going to remember that particular scene or set of waypoints as long as the app is active and the device is on. Once you have finished out that session, that's obviously then going to go away. But the nice thing is you can play that same scene over and over and over again until you get the take that you want.
So do you have to use the app to do that?
No, you can actually use the slider movement buttons right on the head unit itself. So there is a button to move the slider from the left or to the right, and then as well within the side of the unit, you can use the power button to adjust the speed. And so it's going to toggle through the 3 speeds, slow, medium, and fast, by using that power button. and pressing it to toggle those. You can also use that same power button to set your waypoints, if you will, and record a scene.
All right. So that's good. I think that gives people the flexibility, right, to use the apps or the controls within the app, or to use the buttons right on the slider itself. I suspect that you are an app person, though.
You speak the truth. So I really think it gives you the ability to be further away from the device and a little bit more creative, at least in terms of where you're positioned versus having to stand right at the slider and set those waypoints. As well, I think the feedback that you get in terms of visually seeing on the app the position markers, how many are set, really for me just works better for the type of workflow that I would want.
Yeah, I suspect I would probably feel the same way. I think Nessa probably feels the same way as well if she were conscious, which I'm not sure she is. But, you know, everybody's so used to using apps nowadays, I suspect that's probably the most common way to go.
Yeah, if nothing else, I mean, the hard buttons on the device give you a failsafe. You know, let's say that, you know, the device you had the app installed on, you know, you ran out of battery power or something like that. It just gives you another way that you can use the device and not necessarily have to depend on an app or device.
All right, so now I'm going to address the elephant in the room. That's not you, Nessa. No, just metaphorically speaking, the elephant in the room. Is this the kind of thing that everybody needs in their home?
Yeah. No, definitely not, Keith. So one thing about our channel is we definitely cover a fairly wide range of products, right? Reviews and that. And, you know, this is definitely going to fall into that portion of audience that's maybe other content creators. I suppose maybe someone, if they really wanted to up their home movie game, they might look at something like this. But I suspect that a decent number of our normal audience is probably checked out at this point, or they're sitting around maybe waiting for some, you know, big joke that we're setting up as a result of this, or we're waiting for us to do something really funny.
Okay. Well, if we need to do something funny, I could always do that one thing that we did that one time when I...
Keith, we agreed that you would never do that again. And besides, it's only legal in 7 states, and Nebraska and Michigan aren't included in those.
All right, you know. But if you change your mind, I think that court order expires in about a month or so.
Oh, well, look at the time. I think we've slid into the end of another episode.
Slider, I see that, yeah. So I can't do my thing, but you're going to throw that one out there right at the end of the episode. Well, speaking of the end, if you've made it this far, please hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe to our channel.
As well, why don't you go ahead and give that bell a ring so you get notified when there's new episodes. So for Bruce and Keith, thanks for joining us, and you'll see us next time.